The 10 biggest myths in UFO history debunked. Number 1. There's no evidence. This is a very popular trope with many online, and the most easy to debunk, as there is in fact at least 75 years worth of trained observer testimony, official documents, leaked documents, former insider testimony, physical trace evidence, anomalous material samples, multi-sensor evidence, radar returns, photographic evidence, and video evidence. Does eyewitness testimony help prove anything? On its own, no, not in terms of science. In a court of law, yes it does. But we don't just have eyewitness testimony alone, we have all that other stuff too. Taken as a whole, over 8 decades, it becomes clear why the Pentagon, the DoD, governments around the world, investigative journalists, intelligence officials, and millions of citizens worldwide are taking this very real mystery seriously. Number 2. UFOs are only seen in America. UFO sightings have always been a global phenomenon. People online often repost this graphic, thinking it proves that UFOs are merely an American cultural phenomenon, but they are neglecting to take into consideration that the US has the most reports of UFOs because they have had MUFON, NUFORC, and other organizations over the decades actively collecting the data from witnesses, whereas in other UFO hotspots, such as South America, this does not exist in the same way, hence the graphic looks skewed. Most UFO sightings are not even reported. The fact is major sightings, UFO crashes, landings, abductions, and other related experiences have been occurring on every continent of the planet, even if they are not formally reported afterwards. Number 3. The US government would never be able to cover this up. Firstly, the government has covered big things up before, for example, the Manhattan Project, which resulted in the creation of the atomic bomb. Secondly, it is indeed a very big thing to cover up, which explains why over the last 75 years, it has been leaking so much, but while they have failed to cover it up completely, a very effective part of the cover-up has been the application of stigma and ridicule to the subject, which has been very successful at marginalizing the subject and putting anyone interested in it into the fringes of mainstream discourse. Thirdly, any talk about the government as a monolithic entity with a singular goal are misguided. It's a conglomeration of various different departments and factions, some trying to work together, some actively working against each other, battling for dominance. The cover-up of the physical evidence has been so successful because of the compartmentalization of the study of these objects, involving small pockets of individuals and private aerospace corporations who do not have access to the full scope of the data available. Add to that secrecy at a level higher than that of the atom bomb, where the Joint Chiefs of Staff and most presidents are not even briefed on the programs, and you have your 75-year cover-up pretty much in the bag, aside from the odd whistleblower leak here and there. Number 4. There's no clear photos or videos of UFOs. It's true that most photos and videos, recorded in the heat of the moment on a phone camera by an excited witness, are blurry or indistinct to a degree, but yes, there are indeed clear photos and videos of UFOs, for example these ones. Five, UFOs are probably just secret US, Russian, or Chinese tech. The UFO phenomenon predates the major world powers' interest in secretly developing high-tech weapons systems. And even so, if it is all top-secret tech, why are they testing it over urban areas, cities, people's backyards, schools, farms, and other military personnel without their knowledge? Sightings of the Tic Tac UFO date back to the 1950s, and the cube within a sphere shape, subject of repeated sightings over the east coast of America in recent years, was also reported back in the 1960s. The likelihood of it being secret human technology is vanishingly small the further you go back in history. 6. If they're real, why wouldn't they just land on the White House lawn? Well, in 1952, they pretty much nearly did. For 2 weeks that summer, Washington, D.C. was mobbed by UFOs, sighted in the sky by thousands of people, seen on radar, by pilots who chased them. They were seen and photographed over the Capitol building. This was a turning point in UFO history, as after this, the US government, rather than just admitting they were real and we were being visited, went the other way, forming the Robertson Panel, which promoted the use of stigma and ridicule and debunking of UFOs in the public arena, in order to stop the conversation happening in a serious way. This stigmatization persists to the present day. Number 7. Only rednecks, gullible people, and weirdos believe in UFOs and aliens. Scientists aren't taking it seriously. Actually, there has always been a serious scientific interest in UFOs. Major figures in ufology like J. Allen Hynek, Jacques Vallée, and Stanton Friedman were all scientists before entering into the UFO field. In recent years, Dr. Gary Nolan is a strong advocate of the current disclosure effort and is not afraid of being seen as interested in the phenomenon. Astrophysicist Avi Loeb of Harvard University is openly discussing finding proof of extraterrestrial vehicles and set up the Galileo Project. The list goes on, and of course the U.S. government, the Department of Defense, consider the issue extremely serious as a potential national security threat, setting up various task forces related to the issue. Recently, theoretical physicist Michio Kaku came out on the side of disclosure, emphasizing that the burden of proof must now lie with the Department of Defense to show that UFOs are not of extraterrestrial origin, due to the sheer prevalence of valid military sightings of seemingly impossibly advanced craft, recorded by multiple sensors, being made public in recent years. Number 8. The government is pushing this UFO story to try and distract us from something else. This one is particularly absurd, as it involves having to invent another conspiracy theory to explain the actual real conspiracy that is being exposed. People who push this line also never actually describe what it is the government is trying to distract us from. The fact is, the current effort towards disclosure has been emphatically bipartisan, with congressional members from both sides of the aisle getting involved. For example, at the July 26th hearing, you had political polar opposites such as Matt Gaetz and AOC coming together to explore the issue. The fact that the topic is uniting the left and right in a time of extreme polarization can only be a good thing. You also have to take into consideration that this disclosure effort is only being pushed forward by a small faction from within the government, comprised of ex-military and ex-intelligence officials, whilst other factions within the government are vehemently working against them, actively trying to stop this disclosure from happening. As David Grush testified under oath, reprisals have been made against him. Representative Mike Turner recently persuaded James Comer to prevent further hearings from happening as they would, quote, show the DOD in a bad light. Rather than some sort of distractive propaganda operation, what we are now witnessing is a battle between pro- and anti-transparency factions within the U.S. government. Number 9. Most UFO sightings can be explained prosaically. This is indeed true, but the myth here lies in stating this as if it's a fact that UFO advocates have somehow overlooked. They haven't. Every researcher will tell you, it's the remaining cases that cannot be explained prosaically that are of interest in studying further.
I get that the vast majority of these things can be explained. We don't care about those. We don't care about weather balloons. We've been hearing about weather balloons since 1947. Misidentified aircraft, weather phenomenon, yes, it's all there. But we're talking about a small core that just can't. And that's what we care about.
There have been thousands upon thousands of UFO sightings every year for the last 75 years. If only 1% of those are unexplainable, that leaves a hell of a lot of non-prosaic cases that need investigating. And it's not 1%. Recently, a NASA panel estimated that the figure was in fact 2 to 5% from 800 cases it looked at. With Project Blue Book, which studied over 12,000 cases in the 50s and 60s, 5.5% of the cases remained unexplainable. Number 10. The UFO phenomenon only took off after science fiction movies and TV shows became popular in the 50s, therefore people are just being influenced by them. The modern UFO era actually began in 1947, when pilot Kenneth Arnold sighted 9 bizarre-shaped craft flying in formation over Washington state. The incident was a huge news story at the time, which led to the term flying saucer being coined. But sightings of unusual flying objects predate this also. Many UFO sightings occurred during World War II, where they were termed Foo Fighters. Both the Allies and the Axis powers assumed the other side had developed advanced new tech. Wrongly, it turned out. Go back further and there are UFO reports even beyond this. There was the case of highly strange airships seen all over the USA in the late 19th century. And, if we are using the proper definition of the term UFO, we can find UFO sightings throughout history, in Roman times, all the way back to biblical times. So, As the current effort towards transparency continues, look beyond the strawman arguments, the logical fallacies, the bad faith ad hominem attacks of the pseudo-skeptics, and educate yourself on the reality of the phenomenon, however absurd, strange, and unsettling that reality may be, that has been a part of our world for at least the last 80 years. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, subscribe and check out some of our other vids on the channel.